Good morning. Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and some tips to help y'all on your fitness and your fat loss journey. I'm going to get myself live on Instagram, take a little sip of my coffee, and say good morning to my Instagram fam. I know I'm a few minutes early. I put it for 8:10, but I was thinking I was going to need a little bit more time, and here I am, and I'm ready to rock. Today I just want to really talk about CrossFit and the impact of CrossFit on metabolism and how proper fueling and improper fueling can either cause a positive or a negative adaptation to CrossFit. And I think that a lot of you guys are familiar with the terminology of Metcon or metabolic conditioning, as I'm going to be honest, kind of like that's like the center of CrossFit training, right? We do that pretty much on a daily basis when you go to the gym. Yes, there's lifting involved and stuff like that, but metabolic conditioning is designed to exactly what it sounds like, improve your metabolic rate, right? So I want you guys to understand, though, how other things going on outside of your workouts might be impacting your ability to get the positive adaptations you're looking for from CrossFit training. And this is where a lot of people go down rabbit holes, especially as they, enter into the wonderful age of getting, 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 plus, to start to say, CrossFit's wrecking my hormones, my metabolism, my body. I feel like crap. I'm injured all the time. And it's because you're not understanding how to get your body to get the right adaptations you're looking for from CrossFit. Because on the other side of the spectrum, you've got a lot of CrossFitters who have been doing CrossFit for 20 plus years, and they're still doing CrossFit and they're still going strong and they're still living their best life. And if you truly love the methodology, you love the community, you love the way it makes you feel, learning how to get your body to respond the way that you want it to and adapt the way that you want it to is my goal for today, is to help you guys get some clarity on that. So if you are a CrossFitter, or maybe you were a CrossFitter and now you're out of the CrossFit space, or maybe you're looking to try CrossFit and you're a little bit intimidated by it, I want to go over some things today that are going to help you guys get the most out of it. Now, I could segue into talking about the fact that CrossFit is for everybody. So if you heard that last thing and that's you're intimidated to get into a CrossFit gym, go to a CrossFit gym. They are some of the most humble and welcoming people you will ever meet. And it's kind of like, I'll be honest, as somebody who has been in the CrossFit space for 15 plus years, I was thinking about this myself because I train by myself a lot of the times. If somebody came in that was brand new and they saw me working out and they're like, I would love to work out, I'd be like, yes, I have a workout partner. We all love to work out together. So you should never feel intimidated by going into a CrossFit gym, but I would also make sure that person knows how to get the most out of the workout, even though they might be working out alongside me. So today I want to go over some things metabolically that are happening with CrossFit, and some, maybe you're going to hear some things that might be like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that wrong. And that's my goal today, is to give you guys some takeaways that you can start applying and maybe make some better changes. Or if you do want to get back into CrossFit and you're a little nervous, maybe a way to approach it a little bit differently. So I'm just going to pop over to Instagram and say hello to everybody. Good morning, everybody. Love talking CrossFit. All right. So it's funny. I've been listening to a lot of the CrossFit now has put out, they have their regular podcast, and they've been doing a really good job of keeping up with that. But now they also have like their CrossFit Games podcast, and I'm really interested to see, just kind of following that along. I'm a big podcaster myself. That's why I like podcasting every week. But I just love hearing from the different people in the CrossFit space, that like James Hobart, who has been in the CrossFit space since I remember, like he was a training partner of mine years and years ago. So it's so awesome seeing that some of the people that have been in CrossFit since the dawn of time are still going strong. And it's why I want you guys to really lean into the fact that like CrossFit can truly be a methodology that you can follow and use. And what's so cool about it is you don't always have to have the 90 minutes in the gym, right? Like, so I think that, the conventional gym model is great, right? Because it's like, okay, I'm going to the gym and I'm doing these reps, these sets, like I can moderate intensity. I'm not dying in the workouts, but like, you're also like, okay, it's a longer session to get the most out of it. Whereas CrossFit, you can get a little bit more bang for your buck. So, I mean, here's the deal, is like volume matters, right? So if you're going into the gym and you're at a conventional gym, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but you're hitting 5 sets of 10 back squats, and then you're doing like 3 sets of 15 Bulgarian split squats, or, ooh, that sounds horrible. We're going to go hip thrust instead. Okay, that's 50 reps plus 45 reps. It's 95 reps. Okay, Fran is 21-15-9, which is 45 reps of thrusters and pull-ups, right? 90 reps in a much shorter time domain. So you can see here, you can still get some of the similar volume and hopefully the same adaptations if you are choosing the right weights, fueling yourself properly, and understanding the other things that factor in. So just a little bit of a tangent for those of you guys. Larry, I am with you, man. Missing the newbie gains is for sure a huge thing. I'll be honest. It's funny. I was actually reading back over. I literally have like so many different books of my training from years and years and years. And I didn't always track everything, but I was pretty consistent with tracking probably 70 to 90% of my training. So I have tons of written like journals of and I have recently been like, what was I doing that was working so good back then? And I'm like, oh, well, you were 25 years old and you didn't have the training age that you have now. So things were a little bit different for sure. But it doesn't mean it's not too late to make further gains. We just have to look forward, not backwards, because your body really can't. We can never go back to where we were. We can always work with what we got to see what we can get in the future. That's just the way life is. We've adapted to the changes. So that's really the truth about that, Larry. Hopefully that's helpful for you. But the only other thing I will say is whenever you've taken a long period of time off and you come back, the newbie gains somewhat come back. And that kind of happened to me after coming back last year a little bit. And now that's kind of fizzling out a little bit. And I'm still finding ways to challenge myself a little bit. So, okay, so let's get into this today. So let's talk a little bit about some things that I want to talk about first and foremost. And the first thing is understanding your nutritional needs. All right. So whether you are a seasoned CrossFitter, you are just starting, you don't even do CrossFit, this really applies to everybody. But if you're trying to get the most out of CrossFit from a body composition perspective, from a performance perspective, and a health perspective, you have to understand your nutritional needs beyond the gym, okay? Because the reality is most of you guys are in the gym 4 to 5 days a week, max, for maybe 60 minutes a day, maybe 90 minutes a day. And the majority of that is spent maybe doing some skill work, some warm up, some cool down. And then a meat of it is being that metabolic conditioning, which is probably going to be somewhere between 5 and 30 minutes, right? Like that's the majority of your guys' activity level in the gym. What matters more is understanding the nutritional needs of your body beyond the gym. Okay. So your lifestyle matters. If I'm going from the gym to construction sites and I'm like, or building houses, okay, I'm going to have very different needs than an accountant who's sitting behind a desk all day, right? It's important to understand your activity outside of the gym along with your stress outside of the gym, okay? Because your CrossFit training is a stressor and you have to look at the other stressors that you're placing on your body. So things like work, family, sleep, and other things that are going to impact or increase or decrease your energy needs. So those two things, I need you guys to really hear that and understand that when we're talking about nutritional needs, it's very easy to focus, but I only do 4 to 5 workouts a week. I can't possibly do that much. Well, what does your activity and your stress and other things outside of the gym factor into that plan? Or how does those things factor into the plan? Because that's truly, hold on one second, get away. Sorry, I'm not afraid to say that I hate when my cat decides to try and scratch my couch, and it's why I haven't gotten a new couch yet. I love my couch, but he's notorious for trying to scratch it. I just saw him going over there, so I had to stop him. Now that I got distracted, but you have to understand the non-training stressors that are going to impact your energy needs and also put you in an energy debt, okay? So like CrossFit, if you're going into the gym and you're like really hitting it hard, all right, you have to look at how external stressors might be also causing a stress response. So CrossFit does have a stress response on the body. And I don't want you to hear that and think that that's a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. You want your body to get that stress because the adaptation from it is how you build fitness and how you get better. However, if you're literally like going into a CrossFit class, like after like you leave work and you just got into a fight with your boss and like, you're in traffic and like you're stressed out and you haven't eaten all day, like those are all stressors. And guess what? It's going to impact the amount of stress you can handle in your workout and your recovery from it. Okay. So you have to look at external factors, and I'll talk about how that can impact how you approach your CrossFit Metcons as well. Okay. So knowing your nutrition needs are really, really, really important. You guys are not just eating for your hour in the gym. Okay. You're eating in the other 23 hours of your life to prioritize your recovery from the gym, making sure that you're fueling your life and your movement outside of the gym. Because if you don't do those things, when you go into the gym, you're going to be going into the gym in an energy debt and you're not going to feel good. It doesn't matter how much pre-workout you take or what carbs you eat right before your workout. If you are living in an energy debt and you are constantly under stress, your body is not going to get the metabolic responses that you're looking for. Okay. So you have to look at your nutrition needs outside of the gym. All right. Next thing we're going to talk about is training frequency. All right. Frequency and volume. Okay. I want to use the word volume more than frequency because there's a very big difference in somebody says, I train 4 to 5 days a week, and that person doing a 20-minute street parking workout versus that person doing a 90 to 2-hour session from the Mayhem competitor blog, right? So you have to look at the overall hours of training. I don't want you to look at how many sessions you've had. I want you to think about how many hours you're spending in the gym, okay? So like what your training frequency is. So if I look at my training frequency, I train for about 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's about 15 hours of my week. Okay. So like, that's how I look at my training volume. Some days might be a little bit longer. Some days might be a little bit shorter, but that's about the average for me. All right. So that's how I assess my training volume. All right. So more isn't always better. So for a lot of people, when you first started CrossFit, like I know people that are afraid to take rest days. Like, I don't want to miss a workout. I want to miss a workout. Okay, well, more is not always better. We have to be able to recover from that. And if we're going back to CrossFit as a methodology, CrossFit as a methodology was built a little bit more around minimum effective dose. Not that was ever used in the methodology or, in the L1, but like it truly was like, I guess intensity was the shortcut to the sweet stuff is what I would hear. But it was truly about like getting consistency and the minimum effective dose. It wasn't about, more volume for volume's sake. It was like your workout of the day might be 5x5 back squats, and that might be it. Your workout of the day might be a 21-15-9, and that might be it. But as obviously we all kind of get into the CrossFit space, we are all kind of a little bit, there's definitely a very specific type of person that thrives in CrossFit, and they are definitely a dopamine junkie. Like we love that feeling after the workout. Okay. So, but more isn't always better. Your metabolism has to thrive in balance. And if you're always pushing, and I'll go into the volume versus intensity thing next, but you want to make sure that you're getting enough recovery from it. So that's important. Let's talk about that now. I guess we'll talk about frequency. Let's talk about intensity as well. CrossFit wasn't also designed to always be workouts that would kill you. It wasn't designed that 6 days a week, you are literally going into the pain cave. Again, some days might be a 5x5 back squats. Some days might be 30 minutes of moving through L-sit rope climbs and parallel handstand push-ups and L-sits or hip extensions, that was a CrossFit workout. That would be a skill piece. And a lot of people are like, I'm going to do some skills and then I'm going to do something really hard. So you have to look at how much intensity you're putting in and making sure that you're getting enough recovery from it. That chronic overstimulation is causing a chronic elevation in cortisol, which is going to cause things like inflammation, cravings, reduced recovery, maybe some slower progress, burnout, maybe injuries, and stuff like that. So you want to make sure that you're balancing out your intensity. And this is not, I'm not going to give you a prescription of do this many hard sessions a week and this many easy sessions a week. You have to listen to your body. However, what I will tell you is this, is that if you are a CrossFitter and you're hitting classes 4 to 6 days a week. Okay. Choose 1 to 2 pieces a week. And those will be the workouts that you send it on. Those are the workouts where like, this is the one I want to put my money on myself today to like crush the leaderboard. Like I want to truly crush this workout. And the rest of them should be at an RPE of probably 5 to 7, maybe 8, maybe 9. Pulling back a little bit, you're still getting intensity, but you're focusing on the training adaptations and saving it for those 1 or 2 workouts a week that you're going to send it on. I want you to think, if you are a CrossFitter, about the open, okay? We've all done the open if you're a CrossFitter, and you know how mentally taxing those workouts can be. A lot of you guys are attacking every single workout like that, and you're literally leaving every single day like just feeling like complete shit. And that is a recipe for burnout. Like that's where you're like, I got to take time off because I don't feel good. Okay. If you're doing CrossFit well, you should not really need deload weeks. You should not really need big, long, extended periods of breaks, because it should be kind of moderating intensity with the goal being like consistency and movement. Now, am I saying that you shouldn't ever take a deload week? Absolutely not. Like there's going to be times where life brings a deload. Maybe it's, you're vacationing, maybe you're sick, maybe you're injured, whatever. But you should really be looking at being consistent with your movement, just like you are with your nutrition. Okay. But you need to understand what your training frequency and intensity is doing. And this is also where like proper fueling is so important. Guys, the foundation of CrossFit, let me just segue into this. It's like the foundation of CrossFit is built on nutrition. And I am going to actually save that for the end here, because I want to really talk a little bit more about that in general, but I want to keep going with what I'm talking about today, was getting you guys the most metabolic impact, or the things that are going to impact your body's ability to recover best from your training metabolically. Okay. So I'm basically going over so far the things you have to look at to assess and make sure that you're optimizing. So nutrition needs outside of just the gym, the training frequency and intensity of it. And then let's talk about the metabolic stress of CrossFit and why this is so important. So it's not just about your heart rate. In fact, a lot of you guys, myself included, wear fitness trackers. I have a Whoop band on, I have an Apple Watch. Mostly I wear both because, long story short, it's funny because I actually reached out to Whoop years ago when I was trying to get into counting my steps. And I was like, why don't you guys have a step counter? Like, this is so dumb. Oh, we don't want to add more metrics because it might mess up the signals, or I don't know. They came up with something, but now they track steps. So long story short, I had to get an Apple Watch because I wanted to track my steps. Now I just wear both. And I'll talk about the data on that too. I guess I could talk about that. It's not 100% accurate, but it is kind of cool to look at the differences between the two. But there is metabolic stress involved in CrossFit that you're not always going to see in your heart rate. Okay. Your central nervous system also causes stress. That's why, like when I mentioned stress outside of the training, stressors aren't like, your body doesn't see one stressor differently than the other. It's a stressor, and it causes the same reaction in your body. Just because one is a mental stress from CrossFit and one is a mental stress from your boss doesn't mean that mentally you're not getting the same response. It's just coming from a different place. So we have to understand that you're going to have a metabolic stress outside of just physical. It's mental as well. So, and this is where I go into that piece about like not always going to the red zone every single day, every single week, because you are going to risk burnout and a negative metabolic adaptation. Your body will start to try and slow you down because it's stressing, it's sensing that stress coming. In fact, I feel this a lot as I really love the machines, like run, bike, row, ski, and I do a lot of progressions on them. I start to feel this fatigue when I do repeats that I have done in the past. So like, if I know, like this morning, I did 8 by 7 50-meter row repeats. I've done that before, and I know how it feels. So there is a central nervous system stressor outside of just the physical stressor. And I have to regulate that. I have to say, okay, like let's lower the expectations. If you go fast, you go faster, but let's go by RPE today. and I have to like talk myself down off the ledge of like, I have to beat my last scores. But there's mental demand that you guys have to understand are going to tax your recovery, and also your appetite. Okay. So those stressors, cortisol does create a stress response that can sometimes trigger either an increase or a decrease in your appetite, and understanding why consistency with your nutrition is so important. Like I said, I'm going to save nutrition for the end of all of this. All right. Next things to consider when we're talking about getting the best metabolic changes from CrossFit. You have to evaluate your training age and your lean muscle mass. So the longer you've been training, the more adapted you are to your type of training, likely the more load, the more stress you can handle. I do think that that's why there is a lot of CrossFitters that can handle the longevity of high intensity training, because or handle a high intensity training for the long haul, because they have had a good demand. In fact, I loved James Hobart talked about this on a recent podcast I listened to, where he spoke a lot about how he had taken some time off from training after, I forget what season it was, but it was so much easier for him to bounce back and come back and have his best open finish yet, because he had so much time built up of the training stress that it was not hard. And even looking at people like Rich Froning, you know, there's a lot of wear and tear on his joints, but he is conditioned to be able to handle stress. And the longer you've been training, the more you can handle. And your basal metabolic needs are likely going to be a little bit higher because you have more muscle. However, there's also a pitfall to this. The longer you've been training, if you are somebody who, obviously I'm giving examples of two males, and these two males also were not in a situation where they were afraid of eating too much during training. Okay. Neither of those guys were worried about going over their carbs or getting enough protein. They were definitely eating enough food. But what I find to be very common is that a lot of people in CrossFit, you guys are trying to lose weight. You're trying to lose body fat. You're trying to get leaner, and you're constantly under fueling. And that's where you're running into a problem. And maybe in the beginning, you saw some quick wins, being in a deficit or just cleaning up your diet, but your body's not responding the way that it used to, because now your body has adapted to that. And that's where we can also have an issue. And where even I will see people that have been doing CrossFit for years start to say, my body's starting to change and I don't like the way that it's changing. I'm actually feeling like I'm losing muscle. And that's because you've spent too many times doing too many challenges. A gift and a curse of the CrossFit gym is that they like to run challenges. A great way to get people to make changes, but it's also setting people up for failure if they can't maintain those changes. If you're going into these challenges not looking for long-term solutions, you're going to continue to essentially lose and gain muscle mass. And honestly, over time, the loss ends up becoming more common than the gains. So your energy expenditure changes, your muscle changes, and it makes it harder for you to see the results that you're looking for. The goal here is we want to work on making sure we're getting enough food to fuel muscle recovery and muscle protein synthesis, and also making sure we're keeping you metabolically flexible, watching calorie intake. Okay. So going into the next thing that you want to consider, and this does kind of segue into, I guess I want to talk a little bit about specific to your CrossFit workout and the specifics around nutrition related to your CrossFit workout before getting into CrossFit and nutrition and all that kinds of stuff. So let's talk about meal timing in terms of CrossFit recovery and how that impacts everything. Okay, so this is the next thing to consider. Knowing what time of day you train and what you're eating before and after your workout is going to also have an impact on your body's metabolic response. Okay, so when we talk about body composition in terms of weight, overall calorie consumption matters most. But when we talk about nutrient absorption and like optimal nutrient intake, we have to look at getting your body nutrients when it needs nutrients the most. And this is the pitfall I see with a lot of people that do macro tracking and even clean eating or whatnot. They're not looking at how, yes, okay, so I have 1,800 calories to eat over the course of the day. And you're like, well, I would much rather have a large dinner and dessert than eat breakfast. But you're working out first thing in the morning when your body needs energy the most, you're starving it. And then you're eating all of your calories later in the day. Now, is that necessarily going to negatively impact your body composition or your weight? Maybe not, but is it impacting your response from the training? It might be. So it's important to understand that what you're eating around your workouts does matter. Primarily what you're eating after your workout. Before workout, intra workout, when I think about this kinds of stuff, I want you to understand that your body right now is not burning the energy from the meal that you ate even last night. It takes about 24 to 48 hours for your body to break down food and it to be in your muscles stored as glycogen to be utilized. So we're actually today burning the food that we consumed like Sunday. And that's going to be dependent on your metabolic rate, but that's truly how your body works. We're constantly refueling the tank so we don't run out. But what you're eating after your workout will impact things. Before your workout, anything you're eating is going to ensure that you have enough energy available to top off blood sugar, make sure that you're not bonking. But post-workout is what's going to help bring down your cortisol levels. That's also when your body is most nutrient sensitive, insulin sensitive as well. And you're going to be able to really absorb more of those nutrients. It's where protein and carbs is key to getting you refueling. And if you're skipping your meals around your training, what's going to happen is your body is going to start to try and conserve energy instead of burning it. So your non-exercise activity will typically go down if you are not getting enough energy around your workouts, unless you are somebody like me who knows that and you are literally thinking about it and you're thinking about making sure that you're not doing that. So if you are not fueling enough around your workout, it will impact your movement outside of your workout. And that will have a negative adaptation on your overall energy expenditure. You will burn less calories later in the day. Okay, so that's why eating around your workout is important. Now, you don't have to be sucking down a protein shake the second you finish your workout. That is not important. Like, that is garbage. Like, it doesn't really matter. But within 2 hours of working out, you should have had a solid meal. In fact, I actually don't recommend eating something right after your workout because that might negatively impact your body's ability to absorb those nutrients because your gut is so stressed. Like, a lot of people experience stress after a workout, and that's going to mean that you're going to feel sick. It might actually make you feel worse after your workout. Okay. So we want to make sure that you're getting enough. We also want to make sure you're getting enough nutrients overall, as I mentioned, to support your overall day. But this is also why it's important that you look at understanding the signals that your body is giving you. Your body is very, very smart. Okay. You think you're smarter than your body, but your body is talking to your brain, and it's a constant, it's a relationship, and you want them to work together. Your body will try and conserve energy if you are underfueled. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, before I get into let's just talk about nutrition. All right. Nutrition is the foundation of the CrossFit methodology. If you guys have not taken your level 1, by the way, I am in no way affiliated with CrossFit HQ. I used to be, but I'm now not. So, however, I do fully believe in a lot of their methodologies. CrossFit methodology, hierarchy of an athlete, the bottom of it is nutrition. And when I used to teach this to my clients in classes, because I used to teach this in classes, I always put nutrition and lifestyle. So I think at the base, it's what are you doing outside of the gym? And that is actually why I took the path that I took with my own career to want to give more into this, because I wanted to help with the foundation. I love coaching CrossFit. I love movement. In fact, even when I go to the gym, it's so hard for me not to want to give people pointers. It's just who I am. But nutrition is the foundation. You cannot build a house on a shaky foundation and expect not to have to be, patching things later on, right? We need to have a solid foundation. All right. So, but the nutrition foundation that CrossFit preaches, you have to also understand how to apply it to you. Okay. So when Greg Glassman originally looked at the foundation of healthy nutrition, his methodology for nutrition was great for the person who is maybe walking 5,000 steps a day, training for, 30 to 60 minutes a day, hitting 2 to 3 hard metcons a week, and then doing some skills, right? Very balanced. Okay. You have to look at where you're at in your CrossFit journey, how much intensity you're putting in, how much effort you're putting in, your frequency of workouts, and all that stuff. Okay. The foundation of CrossFit, right? In the 100 words of fit is eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. Okay. I have some beliefs about, in my opinion, a little bit of what I have seen in my history of working with CrossFitters, that there might be, in my opinion, a little bit of a miss, in my opinion, and based on science and what I know. Okay, so opinion, science, evidence, all of that stuff. I feel like the foundation should really be meat and vegetables, uh, fruit, starches, some nuts and seeds, and little to no sugar. Because what I find is that a lot of people are over consuming fats and under consuming carbohydrates. And it's why they're having a negative adaptation to CrossFit. However, I think that his methodology and why he preached that way was because his main focus was getting people off of highly processed, ultra processed foods, which I do agree with. Okay, that's why no sugar, right? So you're not eating, your carbs aren't coming from macaroni and cheese and cookies and cakes. It's coming from sweet potatoes, and that's where I feel like the CrossFit's, and I love that the zone was also a piece of it, because if you guys have ever looked at the zone, I do think that was probably a little bit better of an approach to CrossFit nutrition, because it did look at carbohydrates as more of a fueling source. And at the end of the day, that's the second piece of this, keep intake to levels that support exercise, but not body fat. So I kind of do agree, or I should say I do agree that a paleo zone approach would probably be the best thing for that person that's working out, 3 to 5 days a week, doesn't have a lot of stress, very minimal training, but it needs to be also applied to life, and understanding that 80-20 is a very good way to use that. Okay. Here's what happens when you are not getting enough energy, though, and that model tends to lead to be under fueling. Okay. A lot of you guys that are not understanding how to fuel your body are completely void of understanding like what your body is telling you. You don't understand intuition. Intuitive eating is dead. Why? Because of everything that I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you what to do. Everything is telling you what you should be doing, and you're not actually able to listen to the cues and understand how stressors are impacting the cues. So often you are, intentionally under eating, and that can cause, negative impact on hormones, on thyroid, on your muscle mass, and a decreased drive to train. You're not going to recover well. And it's why, like you go through these periods where you're like, I'm like dialing in, I'm locking in for fat loss. Then I'm like, I'm burned out and I'm eating whatever I want. Okay. That was never in the CrossFit methodology. All right. So you have to understand how to take the core of CrossFit's methodology, which is nutrition, but learn how to apply it in your lifestyle for your energy needs. So I want you to hear from this that all of what I'm telling you comes down to understanding that in order for you to get your body to actually give you the adaptations that you're looking for from CrossFit training, metabolically, you have to be eating the right foods in the right amounts, and also looking at the timing of those foods in order for you to optimize that stuff. It's looking at how your training frequency, volume, and intensity is impacting your central nervous system and your body, and understanding how to fuel that. And that is not a magical number. It's not magical macros. It's not these specific foods. Everybody is a little bit different, because guess what? Your lifestyle is very different than everybody else's. It's why you cannot go online and find a macro calculator and just expect that to work. long term. It doesn't always work. You have to be able to learn how to, I call it living within the buoys, and testing and experimenting and seeing what works. CrossFit in its essence is a constant test of testing people to see what works. In fact, the CrossFit Games, the evolution of the CrossFit athlete over time, right? It's constantly testing and seeing how athletes can adapt, right? So the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this today is CrossFit can actually build your body's metabolic response and build your metabolism when you're properly fueling and recovering. You can actually get a positive metabolic response. That is what CrossFit was designed to do. However, if you're not getting the right amounts of foods in the right quantities of them, you're going to stay stuck. Okay. Either you're not focusing on your diet and you're eating whatever you want and you're expecting to get the results that you want just doing CrossFit alone. Okay. Or you're not eating enough because you're following a diet plan that's not meant for you. Okay. You need to be learning how to match your intake with your training frequency, your intensity, and your training age. All right. Prioritizing carbs and proteins is going to be the key to better body composition while giving your body enough fats to support hormone health. These are things that you guys have to understand how to apply to you. Okay. And then remembering that the main thing here is it's never about constantly being underfed. It's always about getting enough nutrients. Okay. So that's really what I want you guys to take away from today's episode. I know I talked about a lot of stuff here, but I'm going to pop over to the chat to see if I have any questions or anything like that that I maybe have missed. And if anybody is still on here with questions, please let me know. I'm taking a look here. Larry asks, let me see here. I'm going to pull up. Oh man, I'm going back in here. Good morning, Judy. Okay, how many steps do you average? If you're asking me, I probably average anywhere from 12 to 18K a day. Mostly because once or twice a week when I do running, I will probably see a little bit more steps those days. I have a challenge or a question for Jody and also Judy, because I think this is important. And I'm okay with the whole, 30 I'm sorry, the fasted workouts. So let's talk about fasted workouts before because this is a great topic. In fact, I posted about this yesterday. There is nothing wrong with a fasted workout. Again, as I mentioned, your body, when you're going into your workout, isn't burning the energy that you're just consuming right then and there. Maybe if it's quick carbs, but mostly your body is relying on stored glycogen. So fasted workouts aren't necessarily a bad thing, as long as you haven't had a lot of stress prior to your workout, either physical or mental, and you're actually eating something afterwards. And I'm going to be honest, I do think that, knowing that, Judy, you have worked with us before, I do think that part of your issue might have been a little bit of your workout fueling after your workouts. That I do think that you might have been seeing a little bit better body composition changes had you changed a little bit of your strength. Not that you didn't have great results, but I think that as you were towards the end, that where you finished things off, I think you were still a little hungry to get a little bit leaner and build a little bit more muscle, and that your workout fueling may have been exactly where you could have maybe made a little bit more of a change. I think that might have been what it is. So my challenge is always asking the purpose of the fasted workout, because Jody and Judy are a little bit different in that, Jody, it sounds like you probably wake up, jump out of bed, and go right to the gym. And in that case, fasted workout's probably fine. However, I would say if your workout's over by 7 a.m. and you're not getting in any nutrition till noon, it's no wonder why you are having an issue losing body fat. Like, that's plain and simple, because you're probably eating too many calories later in the day, and the energy that you're burning between the hours of 7 and noon is probably decreasing a ton. Your body is burning calories every single second. And as I mentioned, if you are not eating enough, you're not recovering from your workout, your body is burning less energy between the hours of 7 and noon than it would be had you have been eating something. So Jody, that's probably where you should be eating some breakfast. You should be eating something after your workout before noon. I am totally fine with you being like, I like to have a bigger lunch and a bigger dinner. But I do think that not eating at the time when your body is most metabolically sensitive does not make any sense for anybody who's wondering why they're not losing weight. And I know that you in particular struggle with a lot of perfectionism in terms of like, I feel like I can't, that might be the perfect thing to fix for you. Like, it's not always about like, oh, I have to decrease calories. Sometimes it's optimizing to get your body to eat enough. And I think that for you, if you could do anything today and take away from this, I would tell you to start putting in something between 7 and 9 a.m. As simple as a protein shake with a banana in it, like maybe a little bit of almond butter mixed in, or, a slice of sourdough toast and some cottage cheese. One of my favorite snacks right now. So that is my little tip to you. And yes, and Jody, that's exactly what I mentioned. Is that probably exactly what it is? And I totally get that. Do you guys have any other questions about, let me see. Good morning. I'm very glad that was helpful for you, Gemma. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to pop them over to me. I'm just looking to see if anybody else might have any questions or anything like that before I sign off here. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions about training related nutrition around CrossFit, maybe some things that you're struggling with, please feel free to reach out to me. I am always here to help, and I will talk to you guys all on the next episode.